Good evening. Um, Likutey Moharan, Mishpotim, Pasha. We are. This is the Torah. Basically, every single Torah of Rabbeinu talks about this union of Mishpotim. We're getting there. Let's get an overview of what's going on. So basically, we have the Torah began by Rabbeinu says that there is an inner seal, which is created by the people who are the tzaddikim who are in charge of admonishing the generation and setting them straight. And we explained that seal, protective shield, called Chosam Hapnimi, the inside Chosam, is also called Chosam Haraglin. It's also called the seal of the legs. I don't know if that's the right translation. And the reason why it's necessary is because these tzaddikim are in touch with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu is in touch with them. He lets them know what are the various judgments that are impending on the world and the Jewish people. And their job is basically threefold, as it were. On one side, they need to advocate for the Jewish people, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and sort of like belittle the severity or the seeming severity of the infringement of the sin. On the other hand, they're supposed to go to Am Yisrael and tell them, that, and it's really express to them how severe that infringement is. I mean, it's not a small thing. And what they need to do is the third thing that they need to do is that exchange, hearing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that there are judgments, that the diplomatic duty that they have on one side to belittle it before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so the judgment will be, so the verdicts, obviously will be lessened, and making them bigger for Am Yisrael. That's the second thing they need to do. And the third is they need to seal the entire process, because like all negotiations that have to do with have to do with sensitive material, sensitive information, it has to be concealed. It has to be concealed because if the Chitzonim, if the Sitra Achra are going to hear about that, they are going to turn the judgment into a cruel judgment. Now, from Din Torah to Din Achzori, from a Torah judgment to a cruel judgment. A very good example of what was going on is, of this particular principle. I mean, I'm just using it as a mashal. I don't know what's actually going on now, but I know that. So I've heard that there were negotiations, or there are negotiations between the prosecution and Netanyahu, to I don't know, to admit something, and for like it's like a deal. They offered him, they're negotiating a deal, and the minute that the news of this broke out, um, the clamorous noise that was made by the people that are against Netanyahu became so, they made such a big noise that the prosecution had to become much more stern in whatever deal they could have signed. They can't sign anymore because I'm not talking about this. I mean, this din was, is cruel from the beginning to end. But even there, you see the minute that sensitive material, the negotiations that have to do with verdicts, with mishpatim, the minute that that it opens up, it becomes that much greater, that much more severe. It turns from something which is reasonable, which has an intention to correct an infraction in the same time, enable, what they call a modus vivendi, a state that both sides can live with. Now it's no longer possible. Why? Because the inner seal, as it were, in this particular thing was broken. Okay, it was broken. It becomes a din achzori. So we said that there is this chosem pnimi. Now, when this particular seal breaks, it makes a kilkul in the generation. Then there become girushin, machlokes in the world. Jews have to leave their places. They cannot live where they. Sorry with that. And then there is an outer seal that guards the inner seal. The inner seal is the last bastion. That's the actual protective cover of the live wire of judgment. The outer seal prevents the inner seal from being exposed to danger, because the inner seal is sensitive not just to attacks from without, but when Am Yisrael is when the infractions are too big, too severe, so the seal cannot contain it anymore, as it were, and that causes the exposure and the adverse results from from the inner seal being burst. The outer seal is a protective shield around the inner shield that it should not get breached. The inner seal should not get breached. Now, the outer seal obviously is very, very important, because if it gets breached and the infractions become too much, then the inner seal will also be breached. That outer seal is made when Am Yisrael has emunah in the tzaddikim, when the people have emunah in the tzaddikim. Now we can understand a little bit more easily when we say that, why does the emunah of Am Yisrael enable the guarding the inner seal, the integrity of the inner seal. The reason is that, what does the inner seal mean? It means that the tzaddikim have to hide the fact that there are judgments in the world, especially severe judgments. But not just that they exist, but when they come and they admonish the people, they admonish Am Yisrael, they also have to hide the fact that there are judgments pending on the world. So it comes to a situation where that then what can you do? I mean, on one hand, if you don't understand that their situation is dire, then what's if you don't understand there's trouble, how will you receive admonishment? How will you correct your ways? On the other hand, if the tzaddikim are being explicit enough to tell the people, listen, if you don't listen, there are hard consequences to face, well, then everybody knows about it. Then the Chitzayonim can find out about it, and the inner seal will be breached. So, how can you seal the fact, the message that there are judgments pending? How can you admonish the people, without while hiding the fact that judgment exists? The answer is, if the people have the proper emunah in the tzaddikim and what they say and what they answer and how they behave and what they tell you, then the tzaddikim don't have to be that explicit in the musar, in the morality that they preached. They can hint. Usually, somebody who's far away from it, even if they hear the morality, can we had 24 prophets, 48 prophets that told us again of the severe consequences of the behavior of Am Yisrael, and it didn't help. They said it. Why? Because when you don't have the emunah, you don't have that emunah, you don't have the outer seal, even if they say to you flat out, you still won't accept it. I mean, try to tell somebody in the world today that immorality, which they call choice or whatever they call it, immorality is the cause of all the diseases, of all the weather problems, and the possible, danger of a third world war that is impending on the world. And if you tell people, this is all impending on immorality, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to think that you're sick in the head. What has one thing to do with the other? When they don't have the outer seal, the inner seal is very easy to breach. But even when they have basic emunah, even then, there is the natural will not to believe. People don't want to believe that our actions may chas v'chalila have dire consequences. We don't want to believe that. That's the reason why people smoke. That's the reason why people, don't take care of themselves. I don't know, whatever. This idea that will not to believe. It was very rampant during the Second World War. When the Nazis started killing the Jewish people, and people simply didn't want to believe. And the people themselves, those that were led to massacre, they didn't want to believe. So as hard as it was, So comes the question, okay, how do you get to this emunah? How do you get this kind of super sensitized emunah that enables you to have just to receive a hint from the Mochichi Ador, from the admonishers of generation, And that will be enough. There won't have to be more explicit than that. So the integrity of the inner seal will be kept. How is it done? The answer is you have to come close to the true tzaddikim of a generation that are called the seven shepherds. In other words, the tzaddikim that are comprised of all the seven shepherds of Am Yisrael. Gemara says who the seven shepherds of Am Yisrael were, but the Klolius, Klolius tzaddikim, that the altogether they are what they call the seven shepherds, because spiritually the job of these tzaddikim is to cultivate the emunah. They like a shepherd, cultivates the flock. Shchon Eretz, reside in the land, or emunah, and shepherd emunah. The tzaddikim, the job of these tzaddikim is to create and shepherd emunah. Now, the main meaning of the emunah, the kind of emunah that they're talking about, is emunah that it's not just that. I mean, what do we believe when we believe in tzaddikim? That they know Torah. We can see that they do. They teach. They publish Sfarim. Whatever it is. I mean, just we can see that they know. So, what do we believe? We believe that being a tzaddik, especially being a great tzaddik, means that there are aspects to them. In fact, every single aspect about them is really beyond nature. There are secrets to it, there are mysteries to it, simply because they are totally fused into Torah. They're totally connected. Whatever it is that they do is connected to Torah, is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person lives connected to Torah, connected to Emunah, on a constant basis, and judges himself all the time to make sure, that he doesn't stray, that he doesn't go off, in any way, shape, or form, then both of the things that he knows that he does, I mean, you have to be a great tzaddik, to realize, the secrets of their maisim. Usually, Rabbeinu says the only thing that is necessary to be a tzaddik is just to be tmimistic, just to be a tamim, just to be simple, just to be innocent, straight, don't look into any kind of, there's a secret even to those tzaddikim, the tzaddik themselves, the tzaddikim themselves, our own teachers, that they have, the atmimistic in their way. When you have the emunah in them, when we have the emunah in them, we can learn from them, sometimes without them even realizing that we do. Sometimes it is. It means that when you have emunah in a yid, a tzaddik el chayid, and he's a real erech yid. It's not just somebody who every now and then makes half-hearted effort to be elech. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. But that means that we have certain times in which we are tzaddikim, and certain times in which we are not so much tzaddikim. Meaning, we have certain times in which we observe what it is that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants with us and from us, and certain times in which, let me have some fun, let me have some whatever it is, let me take care of my emotional whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are, people who are pros. I'm talking about major league tzaddikim. What the thing is that obviously everything that happens to you is from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. But in your relationship with El Chayidin, every single thing that they do, every single thing that they say, there is secrets in it. I'll give you an example. I had a friend. His name is Yossi Piamenta. He was a guitar player, a musician. He was very well known in the Jewish world. And I remember when he was going through some difficulties, and I remember I tried to help him out. I don't know if it was whatever it was, a midlife crisis, whatever it might be. I don't know. But at the time, he's like he was drifting a little bit. So he said he told me something about Rabbeinu that had a great emunah in this, in what he said. So I told my rabbi, Reb Simcha Balev, I told him about him, and he said, he has, if he speaks like this, he has special neshama like that. That's all he said. Okay, I took it further. I allowed myself. How I did it, how I allowed this to myself is still inexplicable. But what happened was that many years ago, being that my grandfather was the Rebbe Elimelech, and when I made tshuva, so Rebbe Cheshen told me, listen, you should know that you have a spark from the neshama of the Noam Elimelech. What does it mean? What are the ramifications of this? I have no idea. But he said this to me. Okay. Later on, I found out that it is a Messiah. I'm telling you stuff that you're probably rolling your eyes and says this guy is totally unbelievable how he allowed himself to do this. But nevertheless, I heard that the neshama of the Chida, Rabbeinu the Chida, Chaim Yosef David Azulai, the Talmud of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, unbelievable tzaddik, who was plus minus a contemporary of the Noam Elimelech, that they had the same neshama. There was two aspects of the same neshama. It's by the Hasidim, that's the way they say. What does it mean? I have no idea. Okay. Now, Yosef Yemeda was a friend of mine, and in fact, he is the one that was the major part in my tshuva process. He was a cardinal influence in that. So I came to him, being that he was a very tmimus dikayid and a great tamuna. So I came to him and said, without any authority or any backing whatsoever, I told him, Reb Simcha Balev, listen to this, listen to the audacity. I said, Reb Simcha Balev told me that Your neshama, Yossi, is a spark from the neshama of the chida. How did this come about? Listen, I mean, and I came and I said something with totally out of the blue. I mean, it's far out and audacious, and if it's true enough, listen, I made it up, okay, based upon whatever the effect that it had on Yosef Emino was immense. First of all, he went out and he got all the books of the Chida. Talk about the Yid that has Amunas Chachamim. They told him fine. He went and he started learning. I don't know how long he learned the books of the Chida, but from then he took it upon himself, and he was saying the entire Tehillim every single day for about 2 decades or more. Every single day, the whole Tehillim. After about, I would say, like 5 or 7 years after I told Yossi Piamenta this outrageous fib, I got a phone call from Reb Simcha Balev, and we talked about something else completely entirely. In the middle of the conversation, he says a sentence to me that later on I reminded him of that, and he said that he doesn't recall him saying this. He told me, I give you permission to say in my name something that I haven't said. So it like throws the whole thing into perspective, doesn't it? When I told him years later about, this is what he said, he says he doesn't recall saying that. Did he know about what I say, what I said to Yosef Piamenta? I have no idea. He realized this and whatever it is, but whatever it was, for me it was very, very clear. Because the Emunah Tzadikim that Yosef Piamenta had, and the Emunah Tzadikim that I had in Reb Simcha Balev, made it so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke through Reb Simcha Balev, because he is a pro. He is one of those, major league El Chayidin, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke through him, letting me know, listen, what you did after L'chal Maisa, it's okay. It has happened quite a few times. Sometimes, and it all is a pol yoytze, it's all a consequence of the Emunah Tzadikim that you have in them. In what? That being that the Yid is dedicated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his actions, his words, his behavior, everything about him is no longer incidental. It's not okay, so that's what happened. Everything about them becomes a mashal. You see, we all live our lives basically on a certain kind of a production line, from birth, all the way to old age. And we pass various stages, over here, they put this part, put that part, they take this out, they put that part in, whatever it is, do an overall, whatever it is, it goes through. Now, it seems, the going go through the same thing themselves. They have a life, and the life, there's all kinds of different things that go around in their lives. But the way that they look at their lives, and mimela, their lives themselves, because of the way they look at their lives, is that the whole thing is incidental. As we said on Motzei Shabbos, it's tam. Sorry, on Monday, a couple of days ago, it's tam. It happened. When here things went well, you went here things didn't go well. Whatever it is, just everything is incidental. Everything is it's a coincidence. Things. In Arabic they say ili fatmat. Whatever happened is dead. It means basically. Rabbeinu speaks in Torah Daled about the different kind of bad traits that come from Dumem Tzomer Chaim Medaber, the inanimate, the plant world, and the animal world, and the people's world, the Medaber world, the midara of the that comes out of the living, the animal world, is dvarim b'telim, is idle talk. Why would dafka idle talk be a consequence, something that comes out of the level of the animal, of chai? That is because an animal, when you see a cat in the street, why is the cat in my yard? Why is it not in another yard? No specific reason. Maybe there's food here, there's no food there, when it's already eaten, whatever. There's no rhyme or reason. An animal moves around in this world with no, there's no bechira in it, there's no seichel in it. It's just, okay, if it's here, it's here, it's there. This is the source of dvarim b'telim. So whenever it is that we live our lives, that if it happens this way, it's dvarim b'telim. Our lives are transitory. Our whatever it is that happens to us is transitory. It comes and it goes, and it's gone forever. But the minute that we do something, we do a mitzvah, or we learn Torah, or we do a favor to somebody, we give a tzedakah to somebody. What we're doing is, if you take a look at the life is like a horizontal movement. The mitzvah and the Torah bring down, imbue the moment with eternity, because it injects value to the specific moment. At this moment, you made a bracha. At this moment, you took a lulav. At this moment, you kept Shabbos. At this moment, you learned Torah. That moment is no longer arbitrary. That is no longer, something which is chronicle. That therefore, once it's passed, it's anachronistic. It's no longer relevant. Any moment in which you thought about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you thought about tzaddikim, you thought about Torah, you performed a mitzvah, that particular moment is forever. Now, what happens is that when people live all their lives connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu all the time, when the transitory is infused with the eternal all the time, it means that the particular life that El Chayid has lived is no longer a story. What it is, it's a mashal. It's a parable. A parable to what? It's a parable to the specific pe'ula, action that tzaddik has enacted in the world. That's why they say that Avraham Avinu was the midah of Chesed. The name of Avraham Avinu, all the actions of Avraham Avinu are a mashal for chesed. That's what it says. Ma'aseh Avos Siman Labanim. Whatever it is that the Avos did, the stories of the Torah are not stories. The stories of this are extremely, filled with mysteries and secrets, which are eternal. Every single action of our forefathers, in fact, they know it, and we can see it very, very visibly with Yaakov Avinu and his children. When Yaakov Avinu is speaking to everyone, they all spoke to Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Yitzchak is giving brachas to Yaakov, and when Esav comes and he wants a bracha, he says, "I can't give you anymore. I already gave I gave Yaakov Avinu all his brothers to be his slaves." Yitzchak Avinu understood. He knew that whatever he said is it. This is what's going to happen. He says, "I can't give you also a bracha because I already gave you to him. He's going to be your master." Yaakov Avinu is speaking to Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu speaks to him, builds a mizbeach to him. You can see, Yosef with the dreams, Yosef that rules over Mitzrayim. It's supposed to be 14 years of famine. He says there are going to be 7 years. It's only 7 years, so 14. Sorry about that. And when his father comes, he comes to visit his father, and Yosef is bringing his 2 sons to Yaakov. Read this entire exchange and see what kind of Chadas Kodesh that Yosef has for his father, because Yosef really understood who his father was. He brings the children, and he brings him. Yaakov says, "Bring him to me, give me the children, I will bless them." And the children are blessed, and he takes them out. What does Yosef? Yosef bows down to his father. Who is he bowing down to? Yosef is bowing down to his father. Because he understands that Yaakov Avinu is the Shechina. Yaakov Avinu is Kudsha Bricho in this world. He is the expression of Kudsha Bricho. Everything. So Yaakov Avinu crosses his hands. So Yosef says, that's not right. Yaakov says, I know, it is right. He was saying Nakuda. And even when it gets to Moshe Rabbeinu, even the name of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are Mishalim of who they were and what they were. In any case, any name is a mashal, especially the name of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and all the other tzaddikim. So you can have Moshe Rabbeinu. It's very, very evident when the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, the essence of Moshe Rabbeinu, is the bringing down, expressing the heavenly law to the world. He is the vessel through which the Shekhinah speaks, and until him, only the very big tzaddikim, had access to what it is that Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted from the world in any given time. But the minute Moshe Rabbeinu came, he brought down the Torah. When he brought down the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu is the receiver through whom the Torah comes and is expressed in this world. The insertion of the divine speech into this world is Moshe Rabbeinu. That's his thing. So when obviously Am Yisrael went through the golden calf fiasco, and Kodesh Baruch Hu says, okay, build me a tabernacle, give me a mishkan, and I will reside in them. Okay, so the Kodesh Baruch Hu is basically giving substitute receivers, to be able to get direct transmissions from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that transmissions goes, through the Mishkan. In the Mishkan, there's Kodesh HaKodeshim. In Kodesh HaKodeshim, there's the Luchos, the Holy Ark, and the Keruvim, which are upon the Holy Ark. When the Mishkan is completed, Moshe Rabbeinu obviously, does the avodah of Shivas Amiluim. Kodesh Baruch Hu speaks to him, and he says, "Vayishma esakol," and Moshe Rabbeinu hears the voice. The Rashi says it's the same voice that he heard entire Am Yisrael heard on Har Sinai. Vayishma esakol midaber elav, being spoken to him, mibein shnei akruvim. From between the two kruvim, facing one another. So between them, the voice emanated. Mibein shnei kruvim, from between the two kruvim. The Rosh Tevis, here we're talking about. You see, there's a new source, there's a new outlet, there's a new speaker. That between the two kruvim. Mibein shnei akruvim, the Rosh Tevis, the first letter of every single word is Mibein shnei akruvim is Moshe. Mem shin hey. Mibein shnei akruvim. The name of Moshe becomes synonymous, becomes a mashal to what? To the insertion of the Dibur Eloki in this world, the godly message in this world. When you realize that the tzaddik is a lot more than just somebody who was personally very holy, obviously, who was personally very knowledgeable, obviously, who who could intercede, who can intercede for you, obviously. When you realize that he's a lot more than that, and you have this kind of emunah, the tzaddik that doesn't have to do much, in order to admonish you. It's enough that he looks at you in a certain way. You already realize that you got to search within yourself and find out, what is going on. Hold on just 1 second. So he said, okay, how can you get to the tzaddikim to get this kind of emunah? Because you can only get into them from the tzaddikim. He says the way that you get it is by being extremely emboldened to overcome all the obstacles that stand between you and these tzaddikim you can get emunah from. You have to want it. And that want it is, Rabbeinu says, it comes through azus, through boldness. We mentioned a few times, azus means that you want something that you don't deserve. Azus is called malchus. The Zohar calls malchusa belotaga. It's a kingdom without a crown. What does a crown mean? A crown means that somebody is enshrined. Somebody is crowned. He gets the authority by the grace of his deeds, of his stature, whatever it is. Azus is malchusa belotaga. It's authority that you have absconded with, without any justification except for the fact that you want it. That's it. And Rabbeinu says in where we are holding in Likutey Moharan, that the Indian of Azus is a very sensitive Indian. Since Azus comes from boishes, it comes from shame. And in fact, they are both two sides of the same coin. If you are embarrassed to daven in shul, loud and bekoyach, because, look, it's not done. I mean, people are going to look at me. People are going to laugh at me. I don't know. Whatever it is, you are ashamed from them, but you are being an asponim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You choose to yield to public pressure, to peer pressure, rather than yield to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. So whenever it is that you are ashamed of one side, you are azaspanim to the other. You're chutzpah to the other. If you are ashamed for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're chutzpah to people who have their own, who live stam, who live, incidental lives. I mean, come on, Uncle, we all go to shul, but please. You need to choose who you're going to be chutzpah to and who you're going to be ashamed of. That's your choice. That's why we say, as ponim legehenim, anybody who was as ponim, he ends up in Gehenim. Avraham Avinu has managed to basically substitute all the Averis to different kind of punishments, except for Azus. Azus goes into Gehenim. That's it. There's no... Every single Avera, every single infraction, every single thing that I do that is not the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu constitutes an Azus Ponim. It means I have no shame for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if I have shame before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have to be as ponim, not only vis-a-vis the people surrounding me, but also vis-a-vis myself. Well, it's cold outside, it's wet, I don't really feel like going out, I'll daven at home. I don't feel like doing it, whatever it is. It's all these things is I am, I'm yielding to my own physical, corporeal body existence, and I'm being as responding to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If I'm actually embarrassed for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have to be as ponim to my own self. What do you mean not getting out of bed? What do you mean not davening? What do you mean not going to shul? What do you mean not learning Torah? What do you mean you're looking when you're not supposed to look? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you think? It doesn't have consequences? I mean, where are you coming from? Where are you going to? Hello? And ultimately, even when I find myself in such a state that I see that I am being sucked in to being as ponim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm yielding to my Yetzer Hara, I'm yielding to my loneliness, I'm yielding to my whatever it is that I'm yielding to. I can chop some good out of that as well by, I don't know, let's say somebody's watching movies. Can happen. And comes a scene that is not, whatever, avert your eyes. Oh, it's a joke. I mean, come on, man. I'm just sitting here watching the whole movie. Now telling me to avert your eyes. Yeah. That in itself is a single moment of fraternity that you stole out of a whole big stinking Avera. Excuse my rough language. Because that's what the Baal Tanya says it is. An Avera is that you take the king by his hair and you are lowering his head and dunking his head into a pail filled with refuse. It's exactly what it is. But if you are able to avert your eyes even for a second, 2 seconds, okay, this I'm not going to look at. You chopped something out of that. You have Azus the Kedusha in the middle of the busha. The whole experience is one of busha. The whole experience is one of total disgrace. But it is not to give up, and in the middle, close your eyes. In the middle, stop your thought. In the middle, watch what you say. It says, "Pagabach menuvel zeh mashchal besamedrash." If the Yetzer Hara has attacked you, pull him, steal from him something back. Because ultimately you never know why you're really going through whatever it is that you're going through. Because there can be a situation. I mean, you can't bank on this, milchatchila b'vaday not. But there can be a situation that you have visited places that you should not visit. Doing things that you definitely should not be doing. For just this one split nekuda of toiv that you're able to steal from it. Because the minute you do that, Reb Nosson explains, the minute you do this is the koyach of the tzaddikim, you can get total tikkun. Reb Nosson says it, he asks a question, well, this we'll finish. He asks a question, he says, how is it possible? I mean, what sense does it make? Am Yisrael was in Eretz Yisrael for 1,300 years. And during those 1,300 years, much of that time, I mean, over 800 years of those 1,300 years, we had Beis HaMikdash, the 2 Beit HaMikdashim. And during that time, we could not, we didn't keep up. We didn't keep up the speed. We didn't do it. We fell to the point that Kadosh Baruch Hu had to exile us from Eretz Yisrael to Babel first, and then with Rome, that hasn't finished until today. So if we couldn't hack it in Eretz Yisrael, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu exile us between the Goyim, and we become coarsened amongst them because of them, which means we get to look at the world as incidental. We do things we shouldn't do. We eat things we shouldn't eat. Whatever it is that goes on. What chance do we stand? That's Israel. We couldn't hack it. What can we do outside of Eretz Yisrael? So Nosson says that there are places where the Yidden that maybe there'd be one Jew in the entire village. You're talking about his time, and that Jew that lives amongst the Goyim that doesn't even know anything from the Torah and mitzvahs. I mean, he just knows that he's a Yid. That's it. And he does one little thing here, one little thing here. Maybe once a year he goes to the city to Rosh Hashanah or whatever it is. He goes to whatever it is. He says that we went on Gullus on the guarantee of the force and power of the tzaddikim. During the Gullus, we just need a spark. We just need a single good deed, a couple of good deeds, a couple of things. With the force of the tzaddikim, we are getting the tikkun to a place that nothing else can ever reach. The places that we have visited spiritually are, the kind of places that there is no, the tzaddikim themselves cannot go into. You went into, I went into. And with this, we got the tikkun. Those places get the tikkun. Any neshama that is imprisoned in that particular place and cannot get out, now can get out because you, me, went in there. And then we said, like, whoa, wait a minute, where am I? What am I doing? And you came out. The Koach of the Tzaddik, you give tikkun not only to you, but all the neshamas that have to do with you, that are from your shorish. B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully tomorrow night we'll have another shir in the Bris of the Medrash at 8 o'clock.